Welcome to SeerNova Podcast. This is episode 117
million. Nice.
17 million.
Yeah, we've been doing this for like 35 years.
Wow. No, but you guys do it like once a week, or is it once a month?
Like once a week, but we're going to be changing that next year.
Yeah, probably once every other week, something like that, twice a month kind of thing. Because it's pretty brutal doing doing every Sunday, and then Greg's got to edit it and upload it and add all the stuff every week.
Yeah, that's wild. I know, it's so much work.
Yeah, like it's not that much editing for this, but like there's another podcast that we have people doing on our platform, and sometimes they since the Peter guy doesn't pay for Zoom, he only gets like 45 minutes or whatever on Zoom.
Yeah.
And he's like talking about that each episode. At the end of the episode, he's like, oh, well, now it's going to end because I don't pay for this. And I'm like, now I'm going to edit that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have our guest, Cristian, which has been on multiple times. So for people that don't know who you are, who are you? What do you do?
Who am I? That's the age-old question. Whether it's nobler to something, slings and arrows. That's a good question. I'm actually trying to rebrand my personal website, and I'm trying to kind of every year or two I kind of rebrand, and that kind of it's kind of my way of doing a business plan where I'm like envisioning myself. So currently on my personal site, which is csa1.ca, it's kind of like a collage of artworks, different styles, including graphic novels and fine art, because I was trying to promote that for a while. And I still have a lot of art that I have for sale. And there it is. So that's the current site, but I'm planning to rebrand it to kind of just streamline it in a few sections where it's like going to have like biography, then artist, then teacher, and then publisher as like the main things that I've been doing in my career. And then underneath each heading, I would kind of go into about a paragraph, just very brief, of what I've done. So I started out as a self-publisher in high school, where I published a zine/comic book, and it was like not many copies. We printed it on a teacher's copier. She snuck us out into the teacher's lounge, and we used the copier to print 50 books, and we sold them for $1 each to the students. Then,
that's awesome.
We're rolling in dough, and we're buying coffee and smoking cigarettes till all our heart could desire. And so then that's how I did it, and then I studied animation. and then I studied creative writing in university as well. This is all in Canada. And then I just decided to be a professional artist. And I started out like working from home and trying to do shows in cafes. Well, I actually registered a self-publishing company. It was a publishing company. It was a desktop publishing business. But I was only publishing my own stuff at the time. I thought I could do that. I thought I could do paintings and then publish my work in books. And then I ran out of capital, but I had the business for about 5 years. And then in that process, I ended up turning to freelancing online to sustain myself, because selling paintings in bars and cafes and doing live paintings at raves wasn't cutting it. So I try to kind of market my skills online. And then over the last almost 20 years now. I have like around 1,000 excellent reviews on like across a few platforms: freelancer.com, guru.com, and upwork.com. So that's really what sustained me. And I've been doing fine art shows occasionally, less so since I moved to the States about 9 years ago. But I still sell works, and I have my fingers in a few things, and I publish books. I publish a nonfiction. It's a living, surviving as a freelancer in the 21st century. There it is. Beautiful copy you got there. And that's a hardcover there. And
Yep.
And then very recently, September 1st, I just launched my new book, Easy and Fun Cartooning Techniques for Drawing Comics and Manga. This is a how-to book that is like compiles all the what I didn't mention before was that I also had an art school at one point in Canada. So because I couldn't sell fine art, so I turned to freelancing online. But when I started to make a decent living at like freelancing and then teaching, so I taught at a community center for many years. Then I started to teach for the city of Ottawa, like in different locations. Then almost every single private art school in the city. And then eventually I decided to not travel as much because I had moved in the suburbs, and I opened up my own art school, which was Masterpiece Art School. And so I had this curriculum that I had developed over the years, which was for typically younger ages, like 6 to 13. And it was cartooning. It was cartooning, and then I had like courses for drawing and painting. And then I taught illustration classes for teenagers and portfolio classes for getting into arts high schools and colleges. So I combined all that curriculum because I built up a lot of handouts that I would be prepared with in class. So I'd give out a handout, give them like a 10 to 15 minute spiel, and then I would supervise the classes for an hour. So that was my routine. So this book, basically I had about, let's say 35 handouts, and I decided, you know what, I have all this curriculum, and I had curriculum for, cartooning 1 and 2 and the illustration classes. So I said, why don't I take this curriculum and expand it and turn it into like a step-by-step, how to learn how to draw comics, basically. So, and it was what I would take the students through, which was like, character design, like heads, bodies, anatomy, all this stuff. But then I expanded everything. Like I added, it's like, I think 99 pages of content in this book. So, everything, I mean, it's what I started with before has all been like expanded upon, like even all the little handouts.
Are these examples of those handouts right here?
Yeah, those are examples, on the back of the book. But
Very cool.
But a lot of that, like if you see the top left one, I think in the original handout it was just like that big head, So so I added all this explanations and all these things that weren't originally there.
Gotcha. That's very cool.
The hands, the feet, all those are new pages that I provided.
The hands are cool because I had a roommate my freshman year in college who he actually got a decent scholarship to the university I went to because of his artwork with hands, because it's like the most complicated thing to draw on humans, and it was like a super interesting. Mm-hmm. Like he had this like really cool picture of a hand, or it was a what's it called? A pencil drawing, right? And he had a picture of a hand with like a phone in front of it, and like where the phone was, it looked like it was x-raying through the hand, and it had mechanical components in the hand. It was like a really fantastic piece of work.
Yeah, that'll get you into a good college.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that section where I draw hands, feet, and a couple of other, I think, just like different anatomy things. I call it hard stuff made easy. Because hands and feet are the things that most people avoid drawing because they're difficult, and even like getting faces is difficult.
Yeah,
Everything's difficult. Like our students ask me, like, they go, "What subject should I choose? Like, what's the easiest?" Well, everything's hard if you want it to be good. What's easiest?
Yeah, nothing worthwhile is easy.
Yeah, like even if I ask them to draw a straight line, if they're not trying, it's gonna suck. It's gonna be bad, right? You have to try everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, this is like table of contents.
I was looking through this. I was looking through this stuff earlier. The hard stuff made easy. I see that.
Yeah.
Also,
of that, but I have like fun little anecdotes at the beginning of each chapter too. Like, I think in the hands one, I talk about this this summer when I was like, I think 10 or 11, and I spent the whole summer trying to get good at drawing hands, and I finally managed to do like one hand like in a position like that, and then I just drew that for the rest of the summer, and then I drew it on everything. So I have like fun little anecdotes.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and it's interesting because when Greg sent me this like yesterday, 2 days ago, I was like, that's so weird because I actually saw this on Amazon first. It might be because like I follow your author page or something, but I actually saw this pop up because he sent it to me and I'm like, wait, I recognize that. I'm like, who is this? And I'm like, oh wait, this is Christian's. I'm like, that's ridiculous. So that was very cool.
Well, I did start running some ads on it very recently.
That makes sense then. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been working all right, like with some pre-sales, but then it like actually launched September 1st, and then it like slowed down right after the launch. So, and actually for a short period on one day, I was ranked number 1 in new releases in the category of how to draw comics. And then,
I knew it was like number 1 in something because he's like, oh, I saw that on Amazon. I was like, yeah, like number 1 in some kind of category. And he's like, oh.
Yeah, it was like for a day, I was number 1, and then now I'm like 100. I think this is the season. It's very competitive. It's back to school, so yeah. I think all the how-to books are running ads.
Yeah, I was going to say, like this particular genre, I'm sure is very competitive this time of year.
Yeah.
Even on Kickstarter, like September, October is like, it's kind of the end of the year for a lot of people because, well, for us, November is like the last month basically for us to do stuff. And a lot of people try to get like last Kickstarter in like October because November is kind of like a dead month because it's like all the holidays start.
Yeah, everyone starts putting their money towards presents and food and travel, and yeah, they don't do Kickstarters or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So summer's good for Kickstarters?
Usually any month. Like sometimes people say there's no bad month to run it, but I think December is not a very good month to run a Kickstarter.
Yeah, or November, honestly, because of the build up.
Yeah, even a guy that was on our platform a couple years ago, I think it was like 2019. He was trying to run this like horror Christmas comic, and I really wanted it to like be a thing, and like it just didn't fund by like not that much. And like if I had the money, I would fund it because he's like, if it funded, you could put it on the platform. I'm like, yeah, but like I didn't have the money to like just do that because I would have because I just wanted it to be made. It's like it's called Donner Lane, and it never became a thing yet. They're still working on it, I think. But yeah, I do like page 19 in your new book because it reminds me of Blender. How you have to get a certain shape, like that's close to what you actually want to make. So it's like oval and it shows like Dracula or a vampire.
Oh yeah. Well, bring that up, Dylan, if you can.
Yeah, I just brought it up.
Yeah.
I don't see it.
There it is. Yeah.
So I like that because it just reminds me so much of Blender.
Well, this is something that I might have introduced in the intro, because this section only has this one exercise in it, and it's something that I stole from my animation course in college. This is a handout that was given to us for character design, and we were given all these shapes, and they were just like these, like all these exact shapes, and then we just had to come up with characters. You move the eye line and the nose line, and you see like those characters at the bottom. I literally improvised them when I was trying to fill this page. So there was a plan, and I just kind of came up with stuff. And I had another page, I forget if it's forward or backward, but it lists like different types of noses, and like an elephant trunk or something, like it might be before, like with the heads. There you go. So you see like there's all these little features. So that kind of, this page preps you for the next section. And then at the bottom, you see I even discuss kind of the differences between male and female characters. So in cartooning, that still exists, I think, but in society, blurred now.
Yeah, this is very cool. Yeah, I remember talking about drawing with who was it? Who was the one we were chatting with that was talking about faces and stuff like that? We were talking about like the components like this. I have Zach in my head, but that's not his name. I don't remember. One of our past guests.
Was it Michael Grazia? Michael Grazia, he's like a cartoonist.
I don't remember. That's the problem with having a podcast a week. There's just so many. It's just like I can't keep track of people anymore. But basically, yeah, I love the idea of having these components. It's kind of we were talking about emotions. That's right. I don't know if that'll trigger anything, Greg, but we were talking about the different emotions in the face and understanding how to actually express those. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about now, and it's driving me nuts because I can picture my just names are gone.
Oh, Brad Linder.
Linder?
That's his name. Brad Linder.
Cool. Yeah.
Batman. Dylan's not convinced.
He was drawing.
No. That's why. No. Never mind. That's why that confused me. No, I know who you're talking about. No, not him. No, it was somebody else. But that was cool. Yeah, we talked about it again on that episode too. Yes, I forgot about that. No, we were talking about resources and stuff and putting them on the website at one point. But we were talking about things like this, like being able to see the different facial expressions. Like there was angry, sad, and then angry and sad, and what that looks like. And like just having like the components of a face like this is very cool to be able to put that stuff together, because being able to see like what eyes look like and like seeing them when they're happy, seeing them when they're sad, and then trying to cross them so you can see like, oh, like happy and sad's like joyful tears, like there's a different look. So it's very cool. But it all came down to like breaking down each of the sections. But this is cool because these are all like unique things. So like these are different noses, not like the same nose in different expressions. These are all different unique noses, different unique faces, or mouths, hair. So it's very cool.
I think it was Sebastian Chow.
There you go, Sebastian. Yep. Yeah, the second you say it, I just needed to hear it.
Yeah, so some sections, like let's say the top section here is very, very appealing probably to younger students. Well, the bottom section can be more interesting and valuable to, let's say, teens to like early 20s illustrators, to like to be aware of the way you structure the faces and what that means. And aesthetically, like less lines are more for women, and then with women, you would change kind of superficial things about them to age them rather than the wrinkles. You would change like the hair color, or maybe you would put like an extra smile line or two, and maybe a line around the eyes, but not much more. Whereas like acceptable for a man there, like a big wrinkly eye, that's totally fine. But for a woman, you would never do that. And when she's old.
Yeah, that's very cool. I do like that. Like this is very like playful up here, very cartoonish, and then it's kind of showing a little more depth, so you kind of get the broad scale of like this is how you start, this is where you kind of look at like what the possibilities are, and then you go, okay, now let's take one of those and get very detailed. It's very
Mm-hmm.
cool.
And obviously, I like page 25 because that's like shows the different body types. Some people don't know that yet because they're just starting to make comics or whatever. And when I'm trying to describe someone to an artist, like this is what this person looks like, I say ectomorph or mesomorph or whatever, and they're like, "What?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
come on.
it's kind of lost this terminology, and I cite the writer, William Sheldon, and this is like one of, if not the only mention of a person in the book. Because I tried very much not to cite people because I didn't want to date the book, but I figured this was such a kind of old-timey sociologist that it didn't really like matter. But if I was to cite somebody really new, like if I was to mention like whatever, a McFarlane or something like that, you never know, like in 10-20 years he might be out of
The limelight.
Yeah. So it could be divisive. But
I was just gonna say it's interesting because the reason why Greg and I started using this, I think I actually learned about the body types from like physiology, like studying human anatomy and basically physical fitness and like what your best, like how to work out best for your body. So like I learned about these that way, and so that's when we found. I don't remember who gave it. It was somebody gave us like a breakdown, or maybe we just found it online, but it was like the endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph. And it is kind of interesting that some artists kind of just dabble until they get pretty good, but honestly learning like that core structure of like how to build a person is definitely super valuable, especially if you're trying to draw the same person over and over again, because we worked with artists who are really good at transitioning them from panel to panel, and then other artists where you're like, is that the same person? And I feel like a lot of that has to do with the lack of this like kind of root knowledge of like, okay, this particular character is a mesomorph, square jawline, normally angry, old, right? Like, and trying to keep this same look, not just trying to draw the same character, but even the same look of the character over and over again. So yeah, I love this stuff.
Yeah, I think current illustrators are referencing so much that they lose this foundation of cartooning, because that's what that's all about. You have to know the character type as a stereotype, and this is, I mean, maybe it's not necessarily applicable to all personality types, but they're generalizations, and they're really helpful for cartooning. Like for example, the ectomorph, which is like the thin, skinny, kind of a nerdy type, it says here, like, they could be anxious, self-conscious, artistic, thoughtful, quiet, private, I should have included nerdy, but it's not really an adjective. So, and then the athletic guy is like more, it says assertive, strong, maybe, extroverted. And then probably the endomorph, he's supposed to be like jolly, like Chris Farley or something, but that's not always the case. That's why I put Santa, because he's always like a big fat jolly guy.
Well, it even works for like someone like The Thing, because like from the Fantastic Four, like he's a perfect example where he normally is a little more relaxed, he's good humored, but then clobbering time, right? The whole thing where like he'll go into the mode he has to, but he was always like the nice guy, but he got turned into a rock essentially.
Well, I believe they were conscious of that. I think, like every team up book in comics always had like a big guy, and I think remember Badrock in like Youngblood? He was like kind of he was the rock guy in Youngblood, and he was like a teenager, I think, right? He was like a teenage guy trapped in the body of a big bulky rock character. Badrock.
Looking him up now.
Doesn't ring a bell.
He looks familiar, actually. The name just didn't ring a bell. Is this share?
It's a Rob Liefeld character.
Is it this guy? Rob Liefeld, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The guy that made Deadpool and a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but inside he's actually like a 13-year-old kid. And then they're all the Youngblood characters are all they're kind of celebrities, but there's government sponsored, superhero celebrities. So anyway, the point is that it's a stereotype, and it's a beginning point. That's the whole point. It's a beginning point, and you can delve from it. But really, in cartooning, you kind of have to lean into these stereotypes because it's a shorthand, and you have to communicate ideas very, very quickly. So it's like, why play against the stereotype? If it'll convolute your message, right? So you get a message out quickly, and I think in some cases, new graphic novels are losing that because they're turning into memoirs and things like that.
I was going to say the interesting thing about using stereotypes with this is that something that Greg and I are constantly trying to do with our comics, because Greg wants to tell a really long story, but comics aren't meant to be really long, right? Like, they're meant to be concise, and that's part of the artwork. That's part of what makes them really interesting, is that you can tell a really powerful story in just a few pages. And so some of the things that you need to do in order to speed up the story is have a lot of implications that are laid out in like a subtle detail of the artwork. And like you said, you playing off stereotypes. Like, when you have the big jolly looking guy, you don't have to tell his whole past story to kind of get an idea of what's going on. You can move on and have the story keep going, implying that something happens, right? Like one of our upcoming comics, there's a scene where these guys are running down an alley and a car pulls up, right? And then something sticks out of the car, and you don't need to see what happens to get the idea of what is likely to happen. And you can move on with the story while still getting the same emotional pull from witnessing that. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, when I was studying creative writing, one of the big things that teachers kept saying was like, oh, you got to avoid cliches, And I remember, this was like, I'm dating myself, but I remember this was around the time that the movie Gladiator came out.
Nice.
And so then I'm watching I'm watching it with my buddies, my writing buddies, and one of them was into film and stuff. So then we watched the Oscars and stuff. And I remember hating it initially based on the fact that it was so cliche. Like, in my mind at the time was like, it's so good, but it's all cliches, Are
you not entertained?
He's getting revenge because they killed his family. It's like the biggest cliche. It's like they did it in Death Wish, they did it in everything. So I used to hate it, but then over the years, as I was working on comics and writing and reading a lot more, I realized that what you want to do as a writer and an artist, and especially as a cartoonist, is you want to play into those cliches, but do it your own way. And it's inevitable that you're going to do it your own way, because it's near impossible to do a perfect copy of something anyway. So, even how some artists start out as mimickers of some of their favorite idols, they eventually come into their own. So I think leaning into the stereotype and the cliches is actually encouraged, and eventually, you're going to find your originality.
100%. Yeah, I was going to say, what is it? I can't remember the exact phrase, but it's something like, if you copy one person, you're a plagiarist. If you copy 100, you're a genius, right? It's like the idea of the best way to get good at almost anything, not just art, is to mimic the greats or mimic your idols, but don't mimic just one. Like, find multiple and then find the thing that pulls you to each of them, and make your own message from it. And like,
Yeah.
what is it, the hero of a thousand, Joseph Campbell, hero of a
Yeah.
thousand faces. Like, the whole idea is that every single hero's journey, like this hero's arc, it's always the same. The difference is the skin that's placed on it.
Yeah.
There's some comedian that does a joke about how what's it called? Harry Potter is Star Wars with crappy lightsabers. Like, some boy whose family is killed goes
Yeah.
and lives with his aunt and uncle. A wizard comes and finds him,
Right.
tells him about an ancient magic, takes him away. The relatives don't want him to go. He's trained by some old dude. It literally is like the same story, just a different texture. And because of that, you have people who are staunch Star Wars fans and people who are staunch Harry Potter fans, and it's just a different, like, everyone needs that hero's journey, but not everyone can hear it the same way. So that's why you can't really run out of stories, because every person needs a unique way to hear that story.
Yeah. Yeah. We desperately want to believe that there's order, and there's a reason to our suffering. I think that's really what the core is. There's challenges, and these characters have constant challenges. Whether they're like whatever orphaned or they're and a lot of them, they're destined to be greater than they are, and who can't relate to that? Because I feel like every person, to some extent, feels like they're never their best self. They're always like, a few meters away from kind of just being their ultimate embodiment of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what makes comics great too. Like, being able to get basically, it's just another medium in which to tell the hero's journey. And it's interesting too, because I think people don't even see that happens in everything, including even movies like The Joker, where it's literally about the villain, and even he still has this arc that's the same type of arc. If you watch Dragon Ball Z and you watch someone like Vegeta, right? Like in the early episodes, like, the whole idea is like everyone goes through these types of arcs. And so it's super interesting being able to display that. And like we were saying, when it's, especially with cartoons and comic books, being able to shorten the length in which it takes to consume that story while still telling a good story.
Can you scroll up to the storytelling section? Because there's like anatomy and all that stuff, and then like
They go past
it. So go to the later in the book.
Oh, later in the book? Wait,
yeah.
What's the page we're looking for?
I don't know. I want to say it's probably Comics and Manga Storytelling, 63.
63. Okay. Oh. Zoom.
Yeah, because there's a great section on perspective, by the way. Like, it's okay. So yeah, this is one panel cartoon, but then scroll a little more. Then I jump into like 3-panel immediately, because when I used to teach, I had like 1-panel exercises and 2 to 3 panels, but then I just expanded it into the 3. Scroll up just a little touch so you can see all the panels. There you go. So those 3 main panels. There you go. So it's like, this is the hero's journey, all on one page. You're welcome.
That's awesome. See, that's cool, because like, honestly, this is something probably even if you're not an artist and you're just like a comic book writer, like, that's super important. Like, you should be able to break your story down into a couple of panels, and then just like, it's kind of like writing a good like blog or something. You start with an outline, and then you fill the blank in for the outline. But you should be able to do the same thing with artwork. You should be able to turn each of those headlines into a single piece of artwork that tells a long enough story, and then you just break those panels apart, get a little more in depth, build a little more emotion, build a little more something into each of these characters.
Yeah, regardless of the length of the story, it helps to have this same structure underneath. Like, this was taken from a commission I did for. It was like a vein and vascular center, so it was a doctor's office. So
the heart doctor, is that what the idea is?
well, I changed that because it had their logo on it.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's like Dr. Love now. But he was like a vein and vascular guy, and this was like a demon that like got at her veins, you know.
Like cholesterol.
But the point was that, like, this story was like maybe there was like a conclusion panel after this, like where they're just kind of walking off into the sunset to be continued. But it was essentially this. It was like very few panels, and it told everything you needed to tell. There was like kind of a villain, there's like a challenge, there's a victim, then there's a hero that comes in and rescues everything, rescues her, and then they're happily ever after, you know. So whether it's like a three panel story, or whether it's like an 8-page short story, which is typical for anthologies, or whether it's like a 100-page graphic novel, you should be conscious of this introduction, climax, conclusion, and the hero's journey underneath that. And then there's like things that I've used in the past where they were for screenwriting, where they have like, at a certain point, like around the 60% point in the story, like boy loses girl, and then so it's like everything's going great, and then he fucks up and he loses girl, and now he's got to win her back again before the end of the movie, So there's those obstacles that constantly happen. It's like little obstacles, and then there's like a big obstacle that are like, it's like almost like the hero makes all the progress you think they're going to make, but it's like the movie's not done or the story's not done. And then one big misstep happens, and then it's like a gigantic setback, and then they have to work, from even less than they began with, and that's what
I love that. There's what's his name? He's in is it a hedge fund manager? Ray Dalio. He wrote a book called Principles, and he talks about how when you're growing even in your own life, like that's the whole point. Like you come up with a plan, you have this goal, and essentially you mess up. So he basically draws like this looping pattern. And essentially, that's your whole life. Like you have a goal, you try to do it, you mess up, you learn from it, you set a new plan, a goal, you accomplish it, but then you hit another struggle, and you just kind of keep looping over and over again. And with a story, a movie, a film, essentially what you're doing is you're just telling a segment of that story, and the longer it is, the more of those loops have to occur, right? If it's a 3-hour movie, there has to be more failures that occur, which is why when you do a 2-part, 6-hour collective Endgame Infinity Wars, right? There has to be multiple failures that get worse and worse as it goes in order for it to be a rewarding ending. Because if every struggle you deal with after the first one is easier, then it's not really a struggle. You've already accomplished, like that's the whole hero's journey, like acquiring some boon, right? Acquiring this new piece of knowledge or strength that you can use to overcome this problem. Right. And it always has to be a bigger problem, so you're always growing.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You scroll more, because there's like, I don't mind sharing some of these. So I talk about scripting there, like different formattings, thumbnails. Oh, I'm going to be running, if anybody's watching, look on writers.com. With them, I'm going to be running a workshop on October 6th. It's a Thursday night. It's a boot camp, 4 hours, all about writing for comics.
Nice. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. Also, I love this right here. This is basically how Greg and I write now. It's funny because Greg used to write in storyboard sessions. So like he basically wrote out our comic in a book format, turned that into a storyboard. But like storyboard is so much different than what you can do with comic panels. And I still remember there was like a scene where somebody was sitting down, shouting, gets up, and then gets knocked back. And I'm like, you can't do all three of those in a panel with communication, where you can in a storyboard because it's a quick scene. Yeah. But this is actually almost exactly how we do it. It's like page name, panel. We describe the panel. This location we kind of put inside of that, but I actually like how you separate that. We normally just put it like in brackets, and then we do character 1, name, character 2, name, and then we go on to the next panel. So yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's a really simple, format, and it's important to like even space it clearly. Like I had a client I was talking to recently, a future client potentially, because I met him at a convention, and then he wants to convert a novel into a graphic novel, and then so I'm like, let me know when it's written, and then
Yeah.
we haven't really talked about like the details of money yet anyway, but so he's just kind of asking me for advice and stuff. I sent him to like this article that I wrote for writers.com all about writing. I don't think he actually read it, because had he read it, he would have seen this page. And so then he was excited that he wrote something, and he wrote something quick, like a first draft of a page, and he sent it to me, and it was not formatted. And I told him like, yeah, I mean, it looks okay, but here's this page again. Like, the formatting is not because I'm like just trying to make you do more work. If I'm an artist, a comic book artist, like I need clear communication. If like one, there's grammar, but I need like you to space things clearly, and bold a couple of things so I know visually what I'm looking at, because the more work I have to do that way, it's just like the more it takes away from like my creativity, and I'm going to be annoyed, and I mean, I might want to charge you more because of this hassle, and then I want to argue. I don't want to have to explain to you why this is costing you more, because you're not, making my work streamlined,
Yeah, that's something that Greg and I learned the hard way, and essentially that's why we came up with this idea. I didn't even know this was a normal structure. We kind of like slowly found this because as we worked with artists, we kept getting more and more questions, and so we just kept trying to answer them in this type of format. And essentially, what happened was I was like, all right, we're gonna spell out absolutely everything we can, because it's one of those things where I realized that. It's kind of like there's a saying where discipline equals freedom, and even though discipline means you're doing something over and over again as opposed to being free, it actually makes it so that the part that you want to spend a lot of time on, you have the availability to do it. So in this case, by giving the artist all of the tools that they need, they can spend their time making the art beautiful instead of wasting time trying to figure out what the art even is. And so, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Right. Yeah, because you were wasting their time. Like, they have to email you, like, what did you mean here? And then when it comes to grammar, it's like, it's not like I'm a stickler for people's grammar, but it's like, if somebody else is doing the lettering, you expect them to be your editor at like $95 an hour for editing services. Google editing services, it's $90 an hour, and like, a letterer is not going to fix your things, and you want to publish it like that, and then so then everybody's going to be polite to you going forward, that your comic, which might have decent art, but it's like spelling errors and all kinds of goofy crap everywhere, they're not going to mention it, or either that they're illiterate like you, and they don't know the difference, so yeah, these are considerations. And I think, like you said, Greg, thumbnails the comic, and that's a great way to do it, because you don't have to be a good artist, but it's helpful. If you want a certain shot, include it with your script. If you have a certain vision, and they'll tell you if it doesn't work. But also, it's important for a writer to know how to visualize like a camera angle, to think like a filmmaker, because then they know if they give a direction like he's got his back turned and he's scratching his nose, and it's clear that he's scratching his nose, like, how are you supposed to show both of that at the same time, So if you were able to sketch it, like maybe you could do it like 3/4 back view, and you could see, that action. But, you need to know how it's going to look visually.
Yeah. There's another thing that we do. Well, mostly Dylan does. I watch him do it. We make floor plans.
I saw that. Yeah. You do
Yeah.
3D floor plans.
Yeah. We try to make it as easy as possible for people. So there's a diner that's going to be in the one comic that we were talking about earlier.
That's really good.
Yeah, and even though the location changed, it's still the same diner. It's not going to change the layout of the diner or anything. It's just in a different spot. But yeah, so we did that. There's a hospital room that I made very basic. Dylan will probably actually make it look like a hospital room. Mine is just a bed. There's no pillow or anything, and someone's like, "Can I have an extra pillow?"
But yeah, I definitely. I was gonna say, even if you're not any good at illustrating, definitely understanding this will help you translate to your artist. And so, before we started doing floor plans, another thing we used to do, and we still do it sometimes if we need to. I'm not a good illustrator when it comes to drawing people, so I'm not even gonna try. And what we did was we used Canva. I found an icon, you don't have a profile picture, like the profile picture icon. Yeah. And I would put people in different depths, right? I would draw someone bigger in the foreground, and then draw someone small in the background, and I'd be like, this one's John, this one's Steve, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's like there. Even if you can't draw, understanding how it's supposed to look, you can use different mediums. Like obviously, modeling an entire restaurant or a diner is not a necessity, but for us, it's fun, it's easier, and because we can use it for other things, it's practical. Where if you can just use Canva and little stick figures, it really does help the artist, because again, they don't have to think about did he mean here or here, which direction, you want to make it as easy for the artist as possible so they can do the part you can't do, which is draw really well.
That's amazing that you guys, I guess over time, trial and error, eventually came around to being so helpful in your directions.
Yeah, it's definitely trial and error is the right way to put that. We our first comic is in the furnace now, just kept away from the public. But yeah, it started off where I mentioned earlier, Greg wrote everything in storyboard format, and we weren't thinking oh yeah, that's not how comics go. So we just give that to the artist, and then we're like, this doesn't make any sense. After you see the artwork, and having to make corrections over time, having to deal with frustrated artists, or us being frustrated, not understanding what the artist wants. And so yeah, I picked up a book on how to draw comics, and that's how I learned some of the phrasing. Even stuff like everyone has heard the word bird's eye view, but I'd never heard the word worm's eye view. I never even thought about it. It makes perfect sense too. And I'm like, oh, if that's what I've been trying to say, from the ground up, I'm writing all this stuff. I'm like, no, worm's eye view. It makes perfect sense. And right. It's just logical too. I don't have to explain that, even if the person didn't know what that meant already. Just the word itself describes itself.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I mentioned that the contrast there and some of these pages. Scroll through a little bit, because it's I don't know if I might have forgotten to. I mean, I try to condense everything, but I might have forgotten to mention. I think I did to mention the impression that you have if you're looking up at a character, it means that they're domineering, they're in control, as or you're kind of
maybe perspective.
Yeah, and then if you're looking down on them, they seem small, and you're the narrator. You're more. You have more presence over the story if you're looking down on them. So,
yeah, and I was gonna say that's really important for a writer, because sometimes the artist doesn't know that this is supposed to be that character that's meant to be. People are fearful, and that's why we're looking up at them, right?
Right.
That's hugely important. And sometimes you might, if anyone knows, Tom Cruise is really short, and in all the films, they're always shooting at an upward angle to make him appear taller. And it's not just so he doesn't have to feel bad about being short. It's because he's supposed to be a domineering character, and you're supposed to be, looking up more idealistically, as opposed to, feeling bad, or feeling like he might not win. You want to feel confident this guy's going to win.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you don't want to give the cameraman being like some 6'7" guy shooting down on Tom like this. Just like them.
Is this a characters in perspective?
Yeah, that's a fun page. And this is the second kind of reference where I use a term outside, like I use the Marvel way.
Yeah.
Marvel way. But like I said, like I try not to use any
Outside reference, yeah.
cultural terms. This is a fun page. I like this. So I have like, just like extra fun things,
Oh, yeah, actually, I was just going to say right here, you got the, you got Kong up here, at that upward angle, as opposed to looking down and she just looks tiny, he looks menacing up there, even if he's got a smile. That's the whole point, is that he can look as nice as he wants, but she's clearly afraid.
Yeah, yeah. And you don't need to show her expression. Her body tells enough.
Yeah.
So.
That's very cool.
Nice. There is a guy that found us on Twitter or something, and he has been messaging me since, I don't know, like May or something. I've been kind of putting it off because I know it's going to be work that I'm not getting paid for. And
what's that?
I said that he wants to like have his comics published by us, and I was like, oh, that's cool, because there's a couple other people that have asked that too. But the one thing that's with his script is there's no dialogue. He just has like basically a storyboard. So kind of like how I did at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, I can make the first trailer, because he has a YouTube channel that's got like, not that many subscribers or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I can make the first trailer. I was like, you shouldn't make trailer or anything yet. Like, you have to make the script. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, so you don't have to worry about trailers. And like, he's like, yeah. And then should I do a Kickstarter? I'm like, shouldn't be worrying about that yet.
You got nothing.
You have to make the comic first. So chill. And then he's like, oh, well, I'm not very good with like dialogue. And I'm like, aren't you a writer?
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, like, but could you help me with that? I was like, I could, but like, it's gonna charge you. So.
I have to write your dialogue.
Yeah, I have to write his dialogue, and I don't know anything about
publisher and ghostwriter. Yeah.
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 So I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I can do that.
Like, what is he doing if you're writing it for him?
He has like the stories all written, but like the dialogue isn't really there. There's just like what the characters kind of say, and I have to actually like figure it out. So
is he a young kid? It's like
I don't think he's that old. I think he's probably like 17 or something. I don't know.
Yeah, he's probably a young kid.
Okay, well you gotta like chill on like a bunch of stuff first.
It's amazing how little people know. Like, especially when they're young, like they just like it was the same for me in a lot of ways. I think even before college, I didn't know how animation was made. All of a sudden I was in the field,
I saw some video or something video.
Oh, the thing I shared with you after?
Oh,
and then you're like, I already saw this?
Yeah, I saw that on like Netflix or something, I don't know, years ago or a year or something. It was like a Walt Disney biography or the Disney biography.
Yeah, like the moving panels.
It shows how animation's like made like back then. And it showed the whole like scrolling wheel thing, and like they had to draw each scene, and like it showed just how Bambi and stuff was made. I was like, that's awesome.
But that's funny because that's how I learned animation. I still learned it traditionally with an animation table, like light table and stuff, and flipping pages. I don't know if they even still do that anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's all done directly drawn on Flash or like.
Pixar is literally like computer animation.
Well, I know, but I mean like the 2D stuff, they still have 2D animations, but I think they're all like After Effects or Flash now turned to Adobe Animate.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I did it traditionally, which isn't very practical.
Honestly, though, like when you learn the traditional stuff, though, I think that, like we were talking about earlier, like understanding perspective, like you don't really learn that if you're just learning how to use a software, right? You learn that by doing it by hand and having to go, oh, there's this. Like you mentioned, like the young kid not knowing anything, and it's funny because I feel like people that were born since Google already existed don't understand how truly powerful it is. Like I get people all the time that ask me a question, and I'm like, I have this magical site that will answer that question.
Yeah. I do that all the time, and it's like very frustrating with me if I see, like, I'm on a few Facebook groups, and then people will post on there like they have general questions. Like, you can answer that if you just Google it yourself, you moron. You know?
Have you ever heard of Let Me Google That For You?
Yeah, let me.
Yeah, there's the what's it called? This thing was it share screen. Yeah, this site here where you can type in like how to draw, right? You got that, and then you get a link, and then you paste that in, and this is what it'll do for the person you send it to. Yeah, and then you type it in, and you're like, oh, how to it already did it. Yeah, how to draw, right? And then web search, and then it'll actually it'll pull up like Google search. Oh, does it not work anymore? Oh, I wonder if it broke. It's so old it probably broke. But yeah, what it used to do is it would literally type it in for you, and then a mouse would move and click Google search, and then the actual Google search would come up and just show you like. So yeah, I love that because I remember when I first started working like in an office, and somebody had sent that to me where it just like it did that and it like zoomed in and clicks on it. I'm like, that's hilarious, like because I asked the stupid questions, like get a stupid response.
I use it all the time, and it's like I feel like I'm pretty good at knowing how to ask the right questions, because if you have to really think hard. That's the trick. If you want to have a specific question, you have to formulate it in the right way and have the right keywords to be able to have it answered. About answer anything.
Yeah, there's a guy that I work with that nobody really likes, and there's a thing that I
this podcast too.
And I googled like basically how he acts, and it came up with like the disorder that he has. It's like it's not bipolar. It's like and I thought it was like Napoleon syndrome, like that, whatever that is. But it's it's the same thing that Amber Heard has. He has that histrionic disorder or something, and it's like they always have to be like in charge or in control or something. And I'm like, what is wrong with this dude? But I like found that just by googling the right like words.
Yeah,
like, oh, I should be a therapist.
Does he know that's what he's got?
Oh no, because if you tell him, then he'd be like, no, I don't want that. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, there should be a class that like teaches how to use Google when you're in school, because I worked at I had a remote internship, I think my junior year of college, and I worked for this data collection company, and all they were doing was trying to like collect random information on like high net worth individuals. So like, we're trying to look up Bill Gates and figure out, like what's his favorite color or whatever, stuff like that. And the interesting thing was, we learned how to actually search Google properly using like their Boolean logic and some of their other, search what's it called? Criteria, like how to narrow it down. So like, for example, you can use the basic stuff that's built into it where you can say, search before today or only search this year. Like those are little drop down things, but you can also do like really powerful things. Like you could type in how to draw comics, right? And then type in file type : PDF. And you'll find PDFs that have that word either in the title or if it's searchable in the PDF. And like, it's incredible. Like that's something that when I tell people that, maybe 1 out of, 200 people have known that was a thing, right? Like it's very, very rare that someone knows that. Or like another one is
really that rare?
Every intern we have like at our music company, like no one's ever heard of that, and they're all younger, so they should. The other one is site, like SITE : and the name of the site, space, and then you type whatever you want to look, and it'll basically use Google search on that site, so it'll find whatever you're looking for on that site. And so like I've used that to find people on LinkedIn because LinkedIn search is terrible. So I'll literally go to Google, type site:linkedin.com, and then I'll search for whatever I'm looking for and then find it where I need it. But like, yeah, there's tons of stuff like that, and people just have no idea that that stuff exists.
That's a good tip about the site thing. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so they're like, it's awesome that you know the file type one, but like, yeah, the site one, for example, like people just, it's something that I only knew because I had this weird, job that happened to require me to search all the time. So I slowly learned more and more about Google. Like they're this or that in parentheses with quotes and this or that for Boolean logic. Yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been using Google search nonstop since I've had a house. Like, how do I get rid of spiders in my house?
Right.
It's so much stuff.
Burn house down.
Yeah, a lot. And then I did actually look for PDF yesterday because I'm reading a book that I like, but it's a huge book, but it's abridged. Still, it's like I was obsessed with like all the stuff that I might be missing out on, and so I Googled it because it's like public domain now, so it's on Gutenberg.
Ah, nice.
Yeah. So then I found it, and it's got like each chapter has like an extra poem and a little introduction that I'm missing out on. They abridged all that. So now I'm gonna.
I got one more really cool search for you, by the way. So instead of just looking for file type, you know, sometimes like there's a Google template, like a Docs or an Excel sheet. So if it's publicly available, you can actually type in site:docs.google.com and then whatever you're looking for. Like I just typed in marketing template and like right here, strategic marketing plan template. I click on that. Look at that. I just found somebody's thing right here. Like it's because it's shareable.
Oh yeah. So I've done similar, but I didn't know about like the colon thing. But I searched for templates like just based on the keywords and the file type. I just put it all in the description, but I don't use like the site docs : part.
Yeah, I love that because like when I found this one out, because this was accidental, but you know you can find so much stuff that you know people create templates all the time. It's just how do you find them, right? Because if their website doesn't have good SEO, like you're not going to find that website. So instead, you look for something so specific, it would be really hard for them to not be searchable in Google, and then you can find it. So like doing this or doing like I was saying earlier, doing like the file type. PDF, and then you can also combine this. I could be like, what is it? Site : what's the name of that site? I think it's marketingmadesimple.com, right? And then I'll just say template, and you can. No, that one didn't work. But basically, you can have.
Can you search? Do it for either my site or actually I published the PDF on my site. Masterpieceartschool.com.
Oh, I got you. Masterpieceartschool.com.
Yeah.
And then file type PDF.
Yeah.
See, 3 PDFs.
Okay, so what's that untitled one? Let's see, because I just want to make sure maybe I have to delete something.
Oh, it just downloaded it. Here.
It? Oh, it's a living. It's a preview of my chapter. What part of my site is that on? Holy shit.
Yeah. I can't. One second. I think I have to. Oh, it's under blobs redirect. Can't see where's the. Oh, there it is. So masterpiece /rail/active store/blob/redirect. Yeah. So basically, so for anyone out there who has PDFs on their website who do not want them to be searchable, this is my little marketing tip for the. Oh, I was just gonna say a little marketing tip for the day. If you don't want stuff like this searchable, you want to use what's called Google Search Console. Oh, console. I spelled that wrong. There we go. You go to this, and you can index your website. So I don't know if I don't know if I have this logged in to see. Yeah. So see, we're logged in. There's our performance, and basically you want to go to your pages. See how we have. Oh, go away. See how we have indexed pages, non-indexed pages, because obviously we have all the comics on our site. We don't want our comics to be indexed because we don't want people to just pull them from Google, right?
Yeah.
So this is how you do that. That's why it's so massive. But yeah, essentially that's how you protect your content, is making sure that Google can't find it, or any search engine for that matter. You just tell it to not be indexable.
Oh, so wait, where do I go?
Yeah, look at this. We got some advice for people now. So Google Search Console. And then what you do is you have to log in, prove that you own the domain, which it'll like walk you through how to do that. And then essentially under index, you go to sitemaps, and this is where you upload your sitemap. So for us, we have a WordPress site. We use the plugin called Yoast SEO, which develops a sitemap. On any page we do not want indexed in our website, we just check a little box that says don't index this. So when the sitemap is created, it won't include it. And then we upload this into Google Search Console. It indexes your site, which now makes it searchable. Google will eventually spider crawl it as long as you're on a prominent, hosting account. But like, let's say, for example, you put a website literally on your own computer, but you want people to access it. You could submit a sitemap to Google so that they can find it, because they're never going to find it on your computer. That's the whole idea, is that if you're using something like GoDaddy or Bluehost or whatever, you're using some hosting platform, you would use this. You submit it in here. You create a site. It creates a sitemap, and then it'll index all of your pages. And then essentially, you want to make sure and go through them and go, oh, I don't want that one. So if you have a PDF that you don't want available, you have to search for it. That's a little beyond what I could show here, because it's been a while since I've done it. Yeah. But essentially, you'd have to go in here and look for that stuff. But yeah, this in particular helps you with search engine optimization.
Hey, Dylan, I have a question.
Yes.
So right now, because I was doing pre-launch, and I made the PDF of my book, just downloadable on my site. And currently on Drive-Thru Comics, I published the digital version, which is, I believe, a downloadable PDF. What's your opinion about that? Is that a bad idea? Because I have some concerns about it. Once a PDF, could just they could upload it somewhere or share it, and there's nobody else to buy it.
Yeah, when it comes from marketing wise, I don't remember what the band was. I think it might have been Iron Maiden, who gave away a chunk of their music, and on that album they made more money than any other album. So the reason why I say that is that if you put a PDF version of your book, your comic book, it doesn't matter. People who are going to pay will pay. People who are not going to pay are not going to pay. But let's say, for example, because I do this with marketing, I will give someone free advice on how not to hire me if they don't want to, right? Now, what will happen is they'll either be like, wow, thank you for being so honest. That sounds really difficult. I would like to give you money to do that instead of me. Or, thank you, I'll do that on my own. And that's great, because that probably wouldn't be a good client anyways, because they think they know everything. Mm-hmm. But, and not in a bad way, I just mean they won't think that I'm providing as much value. Yeah. But the next time they're doing something in front of a friend, they'll be like, hey, how'd you know about Google Search Console? It's funny you mentioned that. I was talking to this guy, Dylan, over here. He does marketing. You should ask him. He's got some information. Yeah. He sent me a blog about it, right? And now that person becomes my client, right? And I've actually had something like that happen quite a few times, because somebody knows that I do this. They did it on their own. They tell someone else. They learned it from me. I now get a client. Same with the books. If someone's going to buy your book, they're going to buy your book. For me, Gary Vaynerchuk is somebody I follow. He's given me so much free marketing advice. I can't afford his services. And then one day he goes, hey, I'm selling sneakers. I'm like, that's great. My sneakers have holes in them. I have to buy yours so I can pay you back, because I feel like I owe you. Right. Mm-hmm. So if someone wants to give you money, as long as you don't make it impossible, to accept their money, right? As long as you're selling your book someplace, they're going to figure out a way to pay you. And for people that aren't, they weren't going to pay anyways, or they're not going to, they're not going to read it, even if they do download it, because, what is it? The perception, they didn't pay for it, so it's not worth reading. And those who paid for it, it's worth reading.
Yeah. And I follow that, because you mentioned the PDF young people earlier. Are the newer generation, let's say as young as let's say 13 to 25, are they using and viewing PDFs in your marketing?
That's a huge there are tons of people. For a small example, comic books are actually on the rise in sales again, physical comics, right? Oh. And so that's interesting, right? And so the idea is that there's just more people. That's why it's going up. But the thing is that of the collection of all the people, including that age bracket, a bunch use ebooks, a bunch use physical books. Like, for example, I cannot read on ebook. I get distracted. I get bored scrolling, right? I want to feel physical progress. I need to have the physical book, right? Even audiobook, if it's too long, I won't listen through it. Like I have the, what's his name? William Durant. Durant? I think that's what it is. He has like an 11, I can't even fit my hands on the screen. It's like, where am I here? It's like this big if I held all the books back to back. It's an 11 volume series of all of history, right? And it's incredible. And I have the audiobooks for like half of them. And it's the first one is like 36 hours long, right? I got like 4 hours into it and like I can't see that progress. I couldn't keep going. Like I'll eventually have to buy the physical books and then listen to the audiobook with the book because I can't do it that way. And so same with the younger people. Some of them need the physical one. Some of them prefer the digital because it's convenient on their little iPad, right? Everyone's different on that fact.
But they are using PDFs. They're familiar with the PDFs.
Yeah.
PDF is still.
Oh, 100%. PDFs 100%. Like that, like every school uses PDFs, like that's, there's not like some other format that they're using unless it's like an ebook, right? And they're specifically downloading it on the platform, like, what is it, Amazon Kindle or iBooks or Google Play, whatever it is.
Hey, and also, by the way, the history thing, have you read Sapiens? Because that's and that's like 5 hours to listen to the book.
I have super interesting. I have this is something, let's see if I can find it real quick. Top 100 books.
I was trying to listen to that as an audiobook, and I was like,
but that's what I'm saying. Because I listen to the audiobook, and it's like really fun and easy and very digestible, and it's all within like 5-6 hours.
Yeah, I need to get the, so I think I even have the audiobook, but I have the physical book already. Is it top 100 books? I'm trying to find the page. There's a it's not just popular. It's specifically, if I can find this website. Oh wait, I think I know where it is. Knowledge book lists. There it is. So this website right here. Let me share this. Share this screen. Right. So this book right here, or this website right here, it's called goodbooks.io. Right. And it says, has tons of books on here, tons of authors on here, but under lists, there's a bunch of these here. Where is it all curated? I forgot the name of the list. So I'll just go back. So right here, so it's top 100 nonfiction books, and Sapiens is on top. And it's funny because I knew this before I saw this page because I wanted to create this page before I found this page. Basically, I wanted to look at top tier professionals, whether they're doctors, athletes, business people, right? Like whatever it is, I wanted to look at all of them and see what their book recommendations were, and then essentially calculate the value of a book based on how many times it's referenced. This one's referenced 49 times. The next closest one is 42, which ironically is my favorite book, Man's Search for Meaning.
I was going to note that because when I was 16, I found that book at a used bookshop, and it changed my life. It was like one of the first like books that I ever read seriously, and I'll never forget it. It's like, I'll put this in the show notes too, because this particular list is super helpful. But this list is solid. Like I've read this book, right? So I read The War of Art, but I've read The Art of War. The War of Art's fantastic. It's by Stephen Pressfield, the author of The Legend of Bagger Vance, which became the critically acclaimed movie with Will Smith. The golf movie. This is an Inner Creative Battles. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, this was actually the first book I had my older brother read to get him to be convinced to read nonfiction books. It's a very short book too. I think I have it buried. Yeah, it's buried. But it's basically, it has 3 sections to it, and it talks about the resistance to creating art, and he includes art like music. Music, film, drawing, it doesn't matter. And he even includes entrepreneurship because that is also an art, because that's the reason why all businesses aren't the same. They use the same structure, just like art uses the same structure, but how you go about creating it is artful. So yeah, he basically talks about overcoming the resistance, becoming a pro, because and I love this too. Like basically what he says is, if you aren't making money as an artist, you're not an artist, you're a hobbyist. Right?
Yeah.
Like, everyone can have a hobby.
Controversial, because we all know like a lot of Facebook groups. I'm an artist. Like,
He basically says there's no such thing as a starving artist because an artist gets paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like if that's like your job title, right? If I say I'm an engineer and I don't work as an engineer and get paid, I'm not an engineer. I have a piece of paper that says that I know about engineering, but that doesn't make me an engineer. So if you call yourself an artist, it's because you are an artist professionally. And then I think the third one is like beyond the resistance or something, and it talks about how to overcome it and all this. It's a very short read. It's very, very great book to check out, and it's good for anyone, like I said, because it's any type of art. Like, it can be comics and drawing or writing, all the way up to business, and it's a very, very high quality read.
That would be a useful one, because it's something like I'm working on a novel now, which is kind of an extension of my nonfiction, but it's fiction. And then I may write another nonfiction in the future. I'm not sure, but I love this kind of stuff. And actually, I have been making notes on a book that I may write in the future. It's kind of more around like it's kind of the same idea, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. But I've been just collecting notes and quotes and things, and that's one of my.
I would probably check this book out then, because you might get some solid quotes. Like my brother, after reading this book, constantly, not anymore because now he's doing really well. But in the beginning, like when he was struggling to get working, he kept going, it's just the resistance. It's just the resistance, right? Like it's this thing. And like one of the portions of the book talks about the fact that like people wait for the muse to come to them, but the problem is, the muse comes to your workbench, and so you have to be there, and it comes whenever it wants. So if you're not at your desk all the time, you're never going to see it. So if you're not working on a regular basis, the muse isn't going to know when to show up because it doesn't know where you are. Right? It's waiting for you to be at work. So it's you have to keep showing up in order for the muse to show up, because they're wandering around.
I like that a lot, because it's like if you're like several miles away from your desk, what's the point? And you're busy in some fucking bar socializing, like, you can't get to your desk and you're screwed.
Yeah, like that. Like when you have a brilliant idea, like in an elevator, because you're going to go someplace, like that doesn't help. Like you can't write it right there, right? And not everyone will. And then some people will be like, "Oh, what was that idea? No, I forgot it." And it's like, yeah, because you don't have a routine, so the muse knows when's a good time to show up. Yeah.
That's a really good. I'm gonna look into that book, because I've seen it in the past, and they're all.
Yeah, and like I said, like this whole page, like I've read like a huge chunk of these books, and like they're all fantastic. Creativity Inc. For anyone who wants to actually start a creative business, this one's fantastic.
I bought it with a friend, but I haven't read it myself.
It's a quick audiobook too as well. It's all about how Pixar came to be, and you get to see another side of Steve Jobs that most people don't hear about. These are all. Yeah. I have to go through this list again. It's such a fantastic list. Yeah. Nice. But yeah, if you ever do end up, there's it's not going to be in this list, but there's a book called what is it? The 5.
Who edits that list?
So I don't know who owns the website, but if you click on this Sapiens right here, you'll actually see the people that are being referenced as the 49 people, like, Mark Zuckerberg, Richard Branson, Joe Rogan, Ashton Kutcher, Bill Gates, right? These are all like highly prominent people. So essentially, all of these prominent people count towards that. Where's the number? Does it show? There it is. So see how it says 49 recommendations? Yes.
People are logged in?
No. So like the person who made this website, I don't know who made the website. When they find that this book was referenced, right? So like, let's say for example, you go to,
like this author has been on those podcasts and they
something like that, or like for example, like James, I just saw James Clear. Where is he? Did I go past already? Oh, there he is. James Clear. Like he wrote the book Atomic Habits that became a bestseller really quickly. So because of that, he's a prominent author, right? It shows like what they're marked as, and I believe in his book he references this book. right? So the whole idea is now he is recommending this book. So this person, whoever runs this website, I believe the way that they made it was they'll look at something like the Amazon best-selling books, and then they'll try to find what prominent people reference it, because a book could have millions of reviews on there, but like, you know, they could be bots, they could be a normal person, but you really want to know what are the top level people recommending. And so that's what they did with this list. And it's funny, like I mentioned, this particular book, before I found this website, I knew that this was the number one book because of all the people I follow. This is the one book that all of them recommended.
Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting. Little side note. The coolest thing I noticed was, of all my books, that book is the heaviest physical book, right? Or at least the densest. Like, where is it? Yeah,
really, because I felt like the audiobook kind of went by really quickly.
Well, that's the thing, is it's not heavy because it's a long book, although it is, you know, relatively long. It's physically heavy. The pages in this thing, right, are like thick. You know, they're thick pages, right? And so it's like, you know, where's the microphone, right? Like you can hear that. It's a very solid book. And so the funny thing is, this is just like a little behavioral psychology. If you hand somebody that you've never met before a cold drink, they will have a cold impression of you. If you hand them a warm drink, they will have a warm impression of you. And so that's interesting. So if you're about to meet, like, you know, your girlfriend's family, right, bringing them a warm cup of coffee, well, you'll instantly have a persuasive, you know, that's a term from Robert Cialdini, like a persuasive action of making them feel warm first, so they're not going to have an initial reaction. And I think people recommend this book because most of the people that read this probably got a physical version, because it has a lot of weight to it, right? And so that was kind of one of the ideas I have. But it's also like you probably heard, like it's just been recommended incredibly, and it's like a condensed story of our entire existence. Yeah.
Well, and incidentally, about the warm drink thing, I like to give people the warm, you know, tea when I meet them, and then I cold cock them.
That's nice. But it's funny actually. But yeah, it's really cool though. Like I love that psychology stuff. But yeah, if you're ever looking for a good nonfiction book, this just happens to be you know, like I said. There's the top one. I don't know why I didn't see that earlier, but I think there's.
Can you click on fiction? Like,
yeah, fiction.
That part of like.
Yeah, I obviously like Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, The Alchemist. I would have actually put The Alchemist first, but it's one person shy. That's funny. George Orwell's up there.
Shrugged years ago. I read the first Harry Potter. Everybody keeps recommending The Alchemist, but Animal Farm I loved.
By the way, recently the Alchemist you would probably really enjoy. It's very much a parable intended to make. Yeah, we mentioned earlier the hero's journey, right? Like people want to feel like their suffering has purpose. This book gives a really good way to think about that. Like I won't ruin the book, but like there's one like type of line that they say, and that's the thing too. The interesting thing is I've never met someone that's ruined this book either. Like everyone always like, you need to read this book. And I actually finished reading this book in 2017 during the total solar eclipse in Nashville before I moved here, which was awesome. So like it was a very cool experience, and it was like my 50th book, so it was like a meaningful read. And basically, one of the things it says in there is that essentially, if you're chasing your destiny, that the universe will work to help you. Yeah. So even if it doesn't appear that way, whatever it is happening is actually happening to help you. Because like, they say the universe is conspiring against me. They say the universe is conspiring to help you.
Yeah, like how does that work, and why does it do that? How can the universe know your wishes?
Well, that's what's so interesting about it.
But like, how does that? Yeah, like why do people just move aside?
I think that's kind of the idea, is that if you go after something that feels right? Because a lot of people, what happens is they don't, and then that frustration leads them to go after stuff that's wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Like I wanted to be an artist, instead I got a job as a doctor, right? And then they might be a jerk and they start screwing patients over, right? It's one of those things where because they didn't go after the thing that they wanted, they become corrupted. And instead, if you go after what you want,
so it's sincerity, like it's, you know, people recognize sincerity, and they respect it and they move aside and bow to it.
Well, no, because like for example, there's bad stuff that happens to people in life, but sometimes if you look back at it retrospectively, as long as you were going after the right thing, sometimes that bad thing might have helped you. Like Gary Vaynerchuk, I mentioned him again. He's like, that job that you really thought you wanted that had a $20,000 a year increase sounds great until maybe you play that portion of your life out, and because of that, you're in New York City walking down the streets, and then you get distracted and accidentally step in front of a bus, right? You don't know what that life would have led to, right? And so the whole idea is to imagine that, whatever life you're going down, you don't know what might have happened. Like some people lose a hand and then their entire life is better because of it. And they don't see it, obviously, when they lose their hand, but they were about to get divorced. They were about to, go off the edge with alcoholism, right? They were about to, do something dumb with their life. And then they 180 it because life was working with them. And so, obviously that doesn't always happen. People get the short end of the stick, but it's this idea that if you think about it that way, it makes it so that you don't give up, right? You don't go, oh, the world's just against me. Instead, you go, how could this be helping me? Maybe this is a story. Maybe I'm supposed to be an author. Maybe this bad thing, like what's his name, Tucker Max, right? I hope they serve beer in hell, right? I don't know if you've heard that book, but he became hugely famous. There's a movie based on it, and the whole idea is this guy was just a jerk, and he knew it, and his life was going to shambles, and instead he told his story in a book and became hugely famous, right? And now he's a much nicer human being. He turned his life around, all this stuff, and it's that's kind of the idea. Is like even when life seems to be against you, there might have been a reason for it. You just have to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do find that amazing, and I've noticed that in my own life. Like I just have to want something, and it's just like the world. Oh, The Road. Have you read The Road? Cormac McCarthy.
I have not. I have not read any fictional books, except for this one right here. So I think this is
good. Great Gatsby. It's like pure poetry.
Yeah, I definitely need to eventually go through this list.
You've never read Animal Farm?
I read it like in high school, or middle school, high school, one of those. I don't know. But like I wasn't paying attention. I didn't care at all for fictional books when I was younger. I didn't care for textbooks either. I just like went through school and got out. I was just like, this is stupid. I'm going to learn everything I need to on the job one day. So I never liked fictional books. But like honestly, some of the books that are on here, like I have a friend. Actually, one of the artists who's under our management company, and he says that this book changed his life. Atlas Shrugged. Like there's so many metaphors he sees in his own life that correspond with actions in this book, and that's kind of the point of a lot of fictional stories. It's to, and like you mentioned earlier with the stereotypes, it's to over exaggerate a scenario so that you can relate to it because it feels that way sometimes, right? Like the world's ending. It's not really ending, but it can feel like that. But when you tell a fictional story, the world can literally be ending and you have to fight against it.
Yeah, fiction's great. And these are, like books that have subtext. And especially you see 1984. What I liked about it, 1984 was like, it's actually a love story.
Really?
Yeah, it's actually a love story because it's about this couple trying to have like this little secret relationship amidst the socio-political kind of connivings of society at the time.
See, it's funny because this is one of those books where I don't remember if we read it in school, but the only thing I remember about this book is like the whole Big Brother's watching. That's about it, right? That's the only thing. Yeah, but like everybody knows that.
And like Big Brother, like are you with the right side? Like everybody's trying to test each other, and he can't even quite trust the girl, and she's so it surprised me because I read it late. The Master and the Margarita I haven't read yet, but I watched clips from like this film of it, and it's supposed to be one of the greatest books of world literature.
Yeah, East of Eden was one book that we actually went through in high school. We read every chapter in school except for one we were supposed to read at home, and I didn't read it. So technically, I didn't finish that book either. Yeah.
I've read some of them, which I'm proud of, but there's a lot on the list.
Yeah, like Fight Club.
I haven't read that,
Game of
but
Thrones.
I'm not a big fan of his writing.
Good night, Moon.
He's a little,
The Godfather. For Whom the Bells Toll, yeah.
The Trial.
Yep, and The Idiot.
I haven't read The Idiot, but that's on my list because I think it's supposed to be one of his better books.
Yeah, I have one of his books. Because I do have a couple of fictional books. I just haven't gotten to them yet because I'm so busy trying to get through like the nonfiction books I'm trying to learn something from. Like right now, I'm going through this book here, I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Seti. And it's awesome. So anyone who has an income that's steady and wants to figure out how can you get all your finances together, this is a very specific book. It's not like, here's an idea that you can try to put. No, it's like, here's the credit card you want to look at. Here's the bank account. When your credit card tries to charge you fees, here is a script you can read to get that fee removed. It works 70% of the time, right? Like things like that. Like it's extremely practical. And it goes, I think it's like what does it say? Like the 6-week challenge. Yeah, it's 6-week program to get your finances all automated. It's pretty cool. But
I saw you bookmarked like tons of stuff.
Oh yeah. Whenever I go through a book, I tab them because I feel guilty writing in them. So like I just tab them up like crazy whenever I find a cool idea. But like because I'm still in the middle of this book. But like where is it? Like is that one? Yeah, like right here, the exact credit cards I use. Right, he talks about that. Oh, where is this? There it is. He talks about that in here.
What's a good credit card?
The two that he mentions that he uses, actually, one of them is it in this section? Pretty sure it's in this section. But he uses Chase Sapphire for travel points, and then he uses something that has like a 2% on everything for like just cash back. I forgot where that one was. I definitely tagged that someplace, but there's so many things in here. Yeah, eventually I had to go through all my tags and then put them into notes on my computer so I can actually organize them. But yeah, basically, one of his credit cards has 2% cash and everything, and he essentially uses that for everything except for I think it's like when you travel or when you dine out, you normally get more points for travel than you would cash rewards. So that's kind of how he uses it. And so, yeah, he tells you that stuff. He also tells you like to look at high interest savings accounts. So I glimpsed through that book a couple of years ago. And because of that, I found Ally Bank, which is a high interest yield savings account. And when I found it, it had like a 2.6% interest rate, which is ludicrous because like a normal savings account is like 0.05 to 0.15%, and this was 2.6%. So I was getting a few dollars every month as opposed to a few pennies every month, which was fantastic. So it's definitely
what about like stocks?
Oh yeah, stock. Yeah, he talks about stocks and index funds, stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely I can't remember all the sections in the book, but it's got 6 primary sections. Here's the chapter here. It's like optimize your credit cards, beat the banks, get ready to invest. It talks about 401ks and Roth IRAs, conscious spending, save while sleeping, and then the myth of financial expertise. Yeah, so kind of like, and there's more chapters too, like investing isn't only for the rich, how to maintain and grow your systems, and then the rich life. Like one of the cool things he talks about, and I very much agree with him, is like a lot of people think they're wasting money on rent when they could be buying a house, but they don't realize that they could be like, people lease cars and they don't see that as the same thing as renting a house. Like you're still getting the service you're paying for. Plus, if the water heater explodes, you don't have to deal with it, right? However, if you are going to get a house and then maybe you rent out a room or something, now you're actually turning a liability into an asset rather than just owning a house for the sake of owning it. Like Greg, for example, needs stuff for business at the house, right? If you notice his purple painted wall, which looks awesome, right? Being able to do that and have the freedom to do that for a business owner might be a benefit to having a house as opposed to an apartment. But if you're just like a young kid and you're like, oh, I'm wasting all my money on this, it's like, no, like you could be saving yourself from destroying your credit and not being able to buy a house in the future because you weren't prepared for it. So yeah, it's cool ideas like that from that book.
Wow.
I really like.
That's cool. I love the stuff you're reading.
Yeah, now we've tangented off. into the ethos of nonfiction where it meets fiction. But the last thing I was going to say was there's a book I was going to reference. It's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and it's a book meant for business people to read, but it's actually like a fictional parable, right? So it talks about like these different team members that have problems and how they're overcome. I have not read that one yet, but when it comes to like being a leader, it's one of like the top 5 recommended books, and it's a fictional book. Right. So I was curious, you mentioned that you were looking at or currently writing another fictional book, but you kind of mentioned this idea of the nonfiction realm. Is that the idea, or is this like an actual fictional story, or is the purpose to have
the novel I'm working on is loosely based on my career a few years ago when I was in Canada, and I was a freelancer trying to work up to a solo art exhibit, and so it's about a young artist trying to find love and success, and he's working towards a solo art show, and he meets this girl, and he's trying to maintain that relationship with that girl, and she's a little bit out of his league, and it's about the different characters that are within the art world, mostly, and her and the relationship with her, and a little bit of his family, but the art world kind of, a lot of the insights are comparable to any city that has different characters that are of that world. So there's like some anecdotes, fictionalized anecdotes of characters, and they all come together.
Very cool. Very cool.
Cool. Well,
nice.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
It was nice talking to Dylan, and Greg was just like supervising there.
And also, where can everybody find your book?
Well, you can, first of all, find the PDF on my website. It's masterpieceartschool.com. So the book is, I'd prefer if you just download it and get it from there. And there's other courses there. I also have a section of free book recommendations, art and book recommendations, where I go through books and some comics and art books, and I just review them and discuss them. And they're like videos that are on YouTube. So there's a section for that, and there's other courses. And then obviously the hardcover and the paperback and the Kindle are on Amazon, and the digital version is available on literally everything, because I made sure with this book to make it available on every single platform. So it's on Kobo, it's on Barnes & Noble, it's Apple Books, but those digital versions are I believe, only black and white illustrations. So I reformatted them, but they're all for tablets.
Nice, Greg. Share the screen. You have the screen now. Boom. There we go. Masterpiece.
Yeah, so that's the website. So if you click on watch the book trailer, there's a little trailer there, and you
nice.
Watch what the hardcover looks like. Yeah, there you go. So I go through the book, and the hardcover and the paperback are all in full color. So that's the benefit, and then the download is all in full color, and you could basically, take a screenshot of a page and bring it into what I do when I do tutorials. I'll take one of the pages and bring it into Procreate, and then I'll put it to the side and copy out of it and show my students. So you could do the same thing. You could just kind of work with that digitally.
Very cool. Very cool. Nice. It was awesome having you on here, and it's awesome to showcase your new book. And it's always good chatting with you about thoughts and lives and books.
Yeah, we were very simpatico about kind of self-development and all that, and we're all creative folk. Hustling and having fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, thanks, and see you around.
See you around.